Hello, welcome to Secure Talk, your trusted source of information on the latest threats, trends, tools, and technology related to cybersecurity and compliance. Join our hosts as they discuss a wide range of topics and speak with leading cybersecurity, technology, and compliance experts. Now is the time for Secure Talk.
Hello everyone, welcome to Secure Talk. Secure Talk is brought to you by Adequest, your cybersecurity and compliance partner. My name is Mark Schreiner and I'll be your host for this episode of Secure Talk. Today we are joined by Edward Walton, a veteran IT professional who works as a cloud solution architect for Microsoft. Edward's going to be telling us about the often misunderstood subject of shadow IT, and we're going to learn what shadow IT actually is, why it can be a problem, and what companies can do to appropriately deal with shadow IT. And finally, Edward's also going to share some tips on how to keep current on the latest trends in the cloud security space. So hey, Edward, how are you today?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm up here in Bellevue, Washington. Where are you?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia, on the East Coast.
Nice. And what's the temperature down there?
The temperature is about, 55 degrees Fahrenheit today. Overcast, has been raining, but, atypical weather in the South in this time of year.
Well, that is not too bad. So you can go out in the t-shirt. We still got snow on our ground out here. So
I'm in shorts and I'm in a short sleeve shirt right now.
I just get really envious whenever I talk to somebody who's farther south than me. I spoke with one of your colleagues, Andrea. She's based down in Florida, Windows 10 specialist, and it's always like sunny and 70 whenever I talk to her. So what we're going to talk about is shadow IT today. But before we jump into that, could you just take a couple minutes and share your background and your experience?
About 17 plus years in the industry. I fancy myself a technologist, meaning that I have a love for all things tech. I won't say the word geek, but I will say tech. My career started the earn your stripes route, from starting as a PC tech to a network tech to a network engineer, and across all different types of technology verticals, cutting my teeth on Archisoft or Lantastic, if that dates me, through Novell, through Windows NT. At the same time, learning Unix, AIX, turned into a route switch guy, primarily focused on Cisco, but could do all the other route switch vendors. And then some form or fashion or another, I ended up gravitating toward Microsoft technologies and working around server products, and then really getting into the security. So I've done a little bit of everything except for write code and be a DBA.
Well, that gives you a really interesting perspective, because, you can look at any problem from various angles. Right now, let's just start with the Microsoft security piece for a second. A lot of companies or a lot of people don't really see Microsoft as a security company. And what would you say to that?
Well, it's not hard, because they're still telling the old joke that Microsoft doesn't do security. But I think, my peers have probably said that Microsoft is the largest security company you've never heard of, spending tremendous amounts of money in the billions around security. It's, net new, as well as I don't think that even includes acquisitions. And so a lot of times the security is baked into the things that you do, so you don't really recognize it as a security offering or a security initiative by the company. For instance, Office 365, which is, the largest collaboration platform probably on the planet, has tremendous amount of security just built into the genome or the DNA of the product. That has nothing to do with the other complementary or sister or cousin products that go along with that around enterprise mobility security. If you talk to my peer, Andrea Fisher, she told you all about Windows Defender, Advanced Threat Protection. So it's not totally foreign, but once people see it, they start to look through a different lens to say, you're right, Microsoft is a security company.
Absolutely. And when it comes to Office 365, for example, there are so many tools and features that are baked in that, like you said, a lot of people aren't aware of. And once they do become aware of it, they're like, wow, this is amazing, right? It's pretty cool. Things like the data loss prevention, encryption tools, MFA, and all you need to know is just how to go in and turn them on or activate them in the way that makes sense for you. What we're going to be talking about specifically is shadow IT. So give us a definition of shadow IT, and then also explain, why is that relevant to you and your job, and then the listening audience.
Yeah, so shadow IT is one of those cliche terms that's been put out there in the industry, like, digital transformation and other monikers. What shadow IT does is sort of confuses individuals because it sounds nefarious, right? When you hear the word shadow, yeah, and then IT. But in my experience, shadow IT is not necessarily to catch negative security actors or malevolent or malicious behavior, even though it can do that. It is really to look at the behavior of entities or identities that you trust in your line of business. And line of business being synonymous with what you need to do to run your organization. That's cloud, on-premise, application, identity, and all those things. So shadow IT is looking at the activities and the transfer of the data and or access for entities that you do say, hey, I trust. So I want to make sure that you're not doing anything both deliberate or inadvertent that could expose the company or its assets to liability. And so shadow IT is often, synonymous with I need to get the job done, and here are the tools that I'm used to doing, or I just don't know any better. And so while it can detect and remediate and sometimes prevent activities that are risky, it is often just to get an insight on what companies or what the entities or their identities and assets are being used, and being able to say, yes, that's okay, but you need to use the authorized or sanctioned process for this, or that is not okay, and you should not do that. And we did not know we had an operation or a risk gap. And shadow IT is the usage of technology without the express or consensual consent of the people who are in charge of those digital access.
Well, give us a real life example. Let's say there's Bob and he works for a large company. How does Bob end up, using shadow IT?
Well, that's a good question, because now with the, I think I used the word plethora earlier when we first connected, of SaaS applications.
Love that word.
Plethora. With the, just tremendous volume of, SaaS applications and legacy web applications. So Bob is sitting at and I had a previous customer. They were farmer, and farmer are notoriously, protective of their intellectual property. And so they had to get some collaboration done, and someone inadvertently stood up a Slack server, right? Because they needed some way to collaborate. Well, that may be okay in some instances, but if you start to exchange proprietary information, need to know information in your organization, and it, inadvertently gets leaked either by virtue of that communication medium and or email, you have caused probably an internal security event. And so I've also seen it in just about every industry where, it's time pressure sensitive evolutions that cause individuals to use technologies to help them get things done, such as forwarding documents to their personal email addresses, or sharing information in their Dropbox because they can't remember the login to get into OneDrive, or they've never used it, or they weren't trained. And so while those were necessary malicious events, end users see these as necessary evils. And
I was just going to ask: Are you talking about some of the candidates in our last presidential election, or other government officials? Because I mean, but and all joking aside, but that's the reality is people just want to get the job done, right? And they don't want to be hindered by corporate IT or their organizational IT and having to go through and say, hey, help me out with this. They just want to get the job done, right?
Yeah, and that is not exclusive to what we deem as end users. Some of the biggest and notorious offenders of this are actual seasoned IT professionals like you and myself who have the power and the keys to the kingdom to decide I am going to spin up this service or this application or web server or um, you know to get this done, and why they justify the evolution by saying if I can do it, then it must be okay, not knowing that you're inadvertently leaking information or leaking processes or have process creep. So, shadow IT is just not knowing what you don't know, and just because it doesn't raise a flag, it could still expose you to risk. And risk exposure may not be measured in an incident, but maybe a regulatory or compliance violation, especially if you're being controlled by things such as PCI, HIPAA, and more recently GDPR.
Absolutely. Well, how big is this problem? Because I've seen, some estimates that 40% of the apps being used by Fortune 500 companies are quote unquote shadow IT or non-sanctioned apps. So their employees are out there and they're just putting apps on their devices, whether it's their BYOD device or it's a company device, just putting the apps on there that they need to get through their day and do their day-to-day activities. And that's again approximately 40%. But what have you seen? How big is this problem?
I've not encountered any customer and or partner who has not had at least some form of shadow IT nuance. It's like reporting breaches. A lot of the breaches are self-reported, so you never really have a true number. But that 40% number is very realistic, if not small. Because if it's not reported or you don't have a tool to actually capture it or you are acutely aware of it, it's probably occurring right now. And so the problem isn't getting smaller. I think that is something that you don't try to prevent. It's something that you try to have actionable intelligence and actionable insight to be able to say, I know what is going on in my environment. So if you had the opposite of shadow IT, you would have light IT, meaning that, I have a good operational sense of what's going on from an identity perspective. And I want to pivot on that and say, I like to equate shadow IT as knowing what your end users or people who have the ability to access data, which greatly differentiates other technologies such as a security event integration monitor or SIM, right? Because SIM is just looking at all activities, whether it be a dumb device or process. Shadow IT is generally looking at users or people that have the characteristics of a user who have the characteristics of doing their day-to-day job, doing stuff that's not sanctioned.
Okay, so what can organizations do to become aware of their shadow IT exposure?
Two things. To start off, assume and that it is happening. It's like assume breach until you know otherwise, and don't necessarily take a all or nothing approach. To cut it off at the legs. A lot of the shadow IT is probably authorized, and the applications aren't authorized, but the entities that deployed them weren't authorized to deploy those. So being able to get good ingestion of data to understand what is occurring within your infrastructure, going ahead and putting that as a known evolution and sanctioned evolution, and if it isn't, notifying the applicable individuals and or responsible parties that yes, we understand that this is part of line of business, but it's not part of the regulation that controls, and we need to bring you into the fold and make you legal. And putting in technology that can help you understand and capture that so that you have something to measure against, right? You can assume breach, but until you have a way to validate it, either yes or no, you don't have a way to control it and put your hands around it.
But are there tools or scans that you can use to see or discover your shadow IT?
Well, absolutely. That the biggest thing that you're seeing in the industry right now around shadow IT or what industry is calling CISSP solutions, which are cloud application security brokers. And so there are multiples in the industry right now. The one that I am most familiar with and I work on day to day is Microsoft Cloud App Security. And what it is it's a technology mechanism to be able to see which applications are being used by your users in your organization based on a series of conditions and or telemetry points primarily around the application repository. So most CASBs work in the same manner. They have a catalog of known applications or the way applications behave. And so when they see these applications transversing their cloud infrastructure, and in some instances on-premise, if they're in a hybrid model, or workers in the field for remote, it can report back on the activities of those individuals and the applications that they're using. And once you see that, you'll see that you have applications that are being used for HR, CRM, ERP, atypical collaboration, such as email, file sharing, as well as like intranet, extranets, and being able to report back on who, what, when, where, and often why they are using an application. And so Microsoft's Cloud App Security is part of our enterprise mobility and security, or our all-up M365 E5 solution that users can deploy to monitor and react to shadow IT evolutions.
Excellent. And from what I understand, I mean, there is some kind of dynamic between the consumers or users of shadow IT and, the IT or security departments in organizations, right? And I'm an end user. I need this app to get it done. I don't want to go to IT because it's going to take forever for them to sanction this. So I go do it. IT catches me, and then we have this kind of antagonistic conversation. But ideally, I think what a lot of experts are saying is you should have just a dialogue and say, okay, well, let's look at this and let us understand how this app affects or helps you in your business. Do we have something already, sanctioned that you can use instead? If not, maybe we can look at bringing this app, in-house. So, what are your experiences around that? What are you seeing around that?
I think it's because security, entities within, both proprietors of technologies, partners, vendors, as well as end users, have never really had a stake at the table. It's always security-minded or enforcement individuals, the security department, are the bad guys. But that doesn't take into account the normalization of IT skill sets across all departments in the enterprise environment. The marketing team has their IT guy. The research and development team has their IT guy. The finance team has their IT guy. But oftentimes they don't have a security guy. And so everybody's sort of all up into this governing entity that every time he comes or she comes or it comes with bad news. But at the same time, those departments have skills and or ability to deploy things like database servers, web servers, download and install applications. And the most powerful enabler of shadow IT is budget. And so when these departments have money to go out and buy these technologies without having to go through an approval process that includes the overall IT organization, they deploy shadow IT inadvertently because they assume if I have the budget, I have the capability, and no one has told me no, and the ends sometimes justify the means, I got to get the job done. So I think that making the security part of the conversation across all IT-enabled entities in an organization helps with that, and being able to say, if I deploy this, is it going to turn on any bells and whistles? And the biggest thing is just ask the question. And so make someone accountable for the security posture of the companies by at least allowing them to ask the question, should I deploy this? And if I do want to use this application, what are the correct ways to deploy it and get authorization for it? And shadow IT monitoring and the capability to detect is nothing more than keeping, for the most part, honest people honest.
Right. No, it's interesting because I've been in organizational meetings before where somebody had asked the question, who in this organization is responsible for quality? And you'd get the QA guys raising their hand, and then maybe a few other people. Who's responsible for revenue growth? And you get a couple of guys from the sales department raising their hand. And, the conclusion of that meeting, and I've seen several of them like that, is like, hey, guys, we're all responsible for quality. We're all responsible for revenues. You just don't ignore that. And when it comes to security, especially security, I would say everybody's responsible. Even if you're not deploying any shadow IT, if you're using email, if you're doing anything on the internet, you are a target and you need to be, to act responsibly, right? And so, but if you're looking at deploying some kind of app, you got to say, hey, is this going to work? Am I exposed here? Maybe I don't have the in-house expertise in my department. Maybe I need to go to the security guys and ask them, hey, what's the right way to deploy this? And it's just, I think, a paradigm shift. And are you seeing companies make that shift?
Yeah, I am, and I think this shift is starting in the traditional ownership of the IT responsibility and security monitoring, right? So, before there was a designated, security group, which is not that recent, where you had dedicated teams of security individuals. That was most often the responsibility of the atypical networking group, and so the networking team looks at how activities occur in the infrastructure differently from a group of individuals who operate in a different, layer of the OSI stack, right? So the networking guys like, well, I see all the activity that are, leaving and entering an organization by virtue of traditional things, edge firewalls, web application gateways. But that is, in itself dubious, because you're really just looking at protocols and ports and activities and not really pivoting on them until you see something that makes a red light go off, right? Because you're already allowing, protocols and ports necessary to do most of your business. You're allowing port 80, port 443, sometimes some remote control applications. But what are those applications doing? And so while firewalls can report on that, or, edge devices, it doesn't really tell you that this application was doing it. So, because how many applications run on port 80 or 443, things that you use anyway, web browsers, right? Mm-hmm. And so the shift is getting away from just a one-all device or one-all process or one-all skill set to see it, to say, let's get closer to what the end user sees when they turn on their machine. Windows 10 boots up. They'll open up their traditional Office client, or if they use any of the Office online products, what does that look like in a day-to-day process when a person is creating invoices, sharing files, going to websites, downloading applications, or on their break, they're logging in to check their billing, they're going to social media, they're cutting and pasting files, and they don't understand that sometimes they're operating in a security context that puts them in violation, right? So how many of us really log out of our elevated account and then log in with like a base level account to do work? We're all guilty of not doing that, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to give these people, or when I say people, individuals, some type of insight to say, hey, we noticed that you did this. Is this part of your normal day? If not, or did you not know that you're not supposed to do this? But I think the short answer to your question is that more and more entities are understanding there's a lot going on that we don't know about, and how do we capture that, and how do we take this telemetry so it's just not a bunch of white noise, and using client or cloud application security brokers such as Cloud App Security from Microsoft helps individuals, and it gives them something that has been very short, useful reporting. A lot of times if you get this information in, you get so much, you can just go numb to the over information, right?
Right.
Useful reporting that makes sense all the way up to the CEO, all the way down to the senior engineer. What can I pivot on that's relevant to my day job, and how can I provide useful telemetry reporting about what's going on? So everybody's responsible, and everybody has the ability to contribute to the overall security posture of their business.
Well, since you've been doing this, what is the most interesting or craziest thing that you've seen come back when you've run a scan or done some type of report, and in terms of showing that to the stakeholders and they had no idea?
Man, I got stories without not using names so I can protect the innocent. It's not a surprise to me now that when you go in whatever security product, the CISSP solution, you generally ask the question, well, how many apps, SaaS applications, are you running your organization? Whatever number you get is always going to be low, and that number is always double. And I know that's not an exact science, and I could probably have to provide metrics, but unless it's a company that has very, very strict usage and application and product deployment methodologies, such as government entities, three-letter agencies, or very secure, commercial entities, they're going to come back, oh, yeah, we know all that we have. We have 25 applications applications. And once you do a preliminary assessment and a scan and a use activity, it's 50 or 75, and oftentimes 150% more than the initial number that they gave you. So that doesn't surprise me anymore. What surprises me now is sometimes seeing the activity of individuals and being able to use things like machine learning and analytics to say the greatest amount of violation of application generally occurs around lunchtime, where people open up a browser, assume because they go into in private browsing mode and they go to Instagram, they go to Facebook, they go to somebody's social media. And they also go to sites, which is of a personal preference, not judging. You see people are going to Tinder, dating sites, and then you see things where you may have malicious activity by insider that you can capture people trying to use browsers that are not meant for day-to-day activities, such as Tor, which is primarily used to browse the dark web or the underweb. So I've seen some of these evolutions. The craziest thing is seeing an entire company run inside another company where individuals were running their own business inside of their day jobs.
No way.
Using resources. Absolutely.
So come on, give me some more details. This is awesome.
Well, you come in, you run this particular, and now you're seeing that this individual is actually hosting their website on the internal web server and are using the resources to promote their business, using applications inside and using storage, right, as a jump box for different things. And a very high-level individual actually doing this, right? And so it's not a spy technology because there is, most modern CASB have the ability to anonymize the individual, because certain places and certain countries say you cannot have technology that allows you to really identify someone based on the activity or personal identifiable information, right?
GDPR.
And so seeing, individuals not watching the individual URLs like job hunting, going to LinkedIn, but seeing them come in and fire up their web server and installing a web server up under their desk to be able to get something done. I tell you, some of the biggest offenders are app dev guys who are standing up app dev environments, to be able to test individual codes and running a sub-origin or a Q&A environment, because it takes too much time to go talk to the VM guys, to talk to the networking guys, to get an IP address, to do all this. So they'll stand up something, piggyback off another IP address inside there, or multi-home something, and they'll just run these different applications. And then the other thing is the shadow installation of applications. If you ever watch something being installed and you have a technology to see what subsequent or dependencies are being installed by the application, you will be amazed. In my home lab, it's just my wife and myself. We're empty nesters. I am running Microsoft Cloud App Security. It is saying that I have 256 unique identities in my infrastructure, and I'm running in excess of 422 different applications. I'm not running 422 different applications. It is because things are turning on in the background. I am a big runner. I did not realize when I installed Strava, it installs all these subsequent apps. And so when you're clicking on these disclaimers and these terms and conditions, oftentimes they're saying, we will share your data with this third party, or we are installing this app in addition to this app. So those are shadow IT entities being deployed by virtue of applications that you said yes. And so, like I said, it could be inadvertent. I could go into some malicious detail about some of the stuff that I see, but it's nothing is off the books now.
No, that was pretty good. I like that. Yeah. I just can't imagine guys just leveraging their company's platform to run their own business, and not thinking that somebody was not gonna notice. I mean, but I guess, and if it happened there, I'm sure it happens at other places as well. So what do you do day to day? I mean, how do you help organizations?
Well, within my role, I work with partners who deploy Microsoft security technologies, right, and workloads and solutions. So my day-to-day is working with partners who have a focus with wanting to build offerings based on the security features and functionality inside Microsoft 365, the Enterprise 5, and Enterprise 3 subscription models. And those workloads include Azure Active Directory, Microsoft Cloud App Security, Azure Information Protection, so on and so on. So my goal and my mission is to work with partners, help them become the best security technologists and practitioners that they can. And if they want to build a security practice and or offer security solutions to their customers, how can they take that and make that a transactional, engagement and a trusted advisor? And that may be coming out and deploying cloud app security or shadow IT technologies to provide ongoing analysis and monitoring of the customer's environment and be able to report that back, maybe in a security operations center manner, or maybe in a managed security service provider manner, or CSP manner, cloud service provider. And then provide some type of reporting, triage, alerting, as well as maybe response. And so I rarely work directly with customers now. I most often work with partners. And once they have these technologies, I help create learning paths for them to fine tune their skills. I help them with feature set requests or just understanding some of the very deep technology, saying, hey, we would like to do this in the technology. Is it possible? Or we are thinking about offering this particular product in this manner. Is that supported, or is it even plausible to be able to do this? So I am very partner focused on working with security and cloud technologies at Microsoft.
Well, I'm sure Microsoft does an excellent job of, keeping you up to date in terms of the latest trends related to your role and related to shadow IT specifically. But what other resources do you leverage to kind of get an understanding of what's going on in the world and what's going to be coming down 6 months from now, a year from now? What we can expect? What do we need to prepare for? Where do you go?
Well, that's interesting. I work at Microsoft. I don't know if it's too early to say that, but I do, and I'm perpetually 2 weeks behind, always. What I talk about in Azure and everything may be irrelevant, but what I try to do is maybe use 4 primary means of information and technology ingestion to keep my skills sharp. Number one, I have a huge network of peers, both at Microsoft as well as career peers that are outside and other vendors, customers, partners, and I look at what they are doing and make sure that I stay abreast by communicating with them in a very personal manner. What are you doing? I follow their blogs. I help contribute. If someone asks for help, I give as much as I give. So keeping a good peer network for individuals who are either competitors or actually out in the field is one of the ways that I do. Number two, I'm a voracious reader. I try to read very relevant blogs, and my homepage on my Edge browser consists of a bunch of tabs. That first thing that I do is look at what is being published, right? Because a lot of times some people have better methodologies and better processes for, keeping abreast. And then I write. So part of my role is being able to write blogs and do podcasts and be able to do the technology. Number three is I try to stay very close to the engineering teams, right? Not to the point where I'm on every release, but making sure that I am proactive by asking them, what is on the roadmap that you can share with me that doesn't violate any, non-disclosure or don't release it too early. And then just keeping a thirst for the technology by keeping my own Azure subscription, my own 365 subscription, and I really set time aside. I don't work on my skill set and my technology when I have time. I dedicate time to it, and then I teach. I'm a certified Microsoft trainer, as well as I'm a trainer, and I've done other things. If you can teach the technology, you'll find that you'll stay sharp because you're always cognizant of someone's going to want to outsmart the teacher, right, or really catch you when something is a little bit dated. Not that I'm concerned about it, but, you want to stay relevant about it. So those are probably the 4 primary ways that I try to stay abreast of technology.
Those are some excellent tips there. Let me ask you. So you have your own blog or website, something. If somebody wanted to kind of follow what you're doing, how would they do that?
I used to. I try to stay below the radar. I do write for the partner community. So myself and my peer on my team, John Wojan, he and I are the leads of the partner community for security and modern workplace. So majority of my writings are non-personal to my actual industry identity. I write as part of the Microsoft partner community, and it used to be the old TechNet blogs. It may still be. I'm not a big social media guy, so trying to find me maybe a little bit hard. I get my LinkedIn request box probably has 250 people in it, right, waiting for approval.
You got that. You've got that security profile, man. You got that. You're just like that mindset.
Really nervous.
Yeah.
I'm just nervous about my stuff being out there, right? So I'm not impossible to find, but a casual glance, you won't find me.
Okay, so let me jump tracks then. You said something that kind of impressed me and has actually motivated me to do something that I have a challenge of setting time aside to study. Because, I mean, like most of us, I'm reacting to emails, I'm in meetings, I'm doing a podcast, I'm in another meeting, I'm on a call, I've got, emails I got to respond to, blah, 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 blah. Plus, there's the whole family side as well, and et cetera. And so, I've got all these articles that I want to read or that I should be reading, but I always like, yeah, I'll get to them. I'll get to them when I get to them, but I rarely do these days, especially. So how do you manage that? Sounds like you have a process or a plan.
Well, I'm ex-military, ex-Navy. So a lot of that discipline was set in by having a routine that was thought out for you. So a lot of that has transitioned with me in my civilian life. Mm-hmm. And so I find that making time is similar to me running. I think I mentioned that I'm a big runner.
Yeah.
I know that if I don't get up and get it done, it will not get done because other things will take precedence. Humans, I'm a big fan of, behavior analytics and stuff like that. We are task-oriented entities. And so studying and labbing and learning for the sake of it, why it's possible for some of the more brilliant people, seems just an onerous task. But when you study and have a task such as, I need to get this done because I have an exam to take, right? Put something out there that gives you a goal and don't just study for the sake of studying. Because as a consultant, a lot of time we build a bad habit of learning in the field or trial by fire. God knows how many things I've learned the day of in front of the customer, right? So I make sure that I put it on my calendar. It is always the first thing. Saying that when the day ends, I will study, that won't happen. Now, that may work for some individuals, but I like to get it done first thing. And I like to make sure it's the first thing that I do. I stay away from email. Once you get engrossed into it, is a huge time consumer. Social medias, mainly if I do get on it, is for the weekends only, unless I'm doing something that's professional related or I have to respond in that medium. So make it priority, make it task oriented, and also do it in the servitude of others. And so when my peers or my colleagues need help, and I have to come up on the technology to be able to assist them, once again, it's task oriented. So if Andrea needs my help, or John, or Mark, or Matt, or Travis on my team, I know I need to have this knowledge in my head by this date to be able to help them with a presentation. So servitude, helping others, getting up early and making it a priority and not when I have time, and having a task that's associated with learning. Certification is probably the most obvious, but if you want to be considered an expert, you wouldn't want to know what you're going to write about. You wouldn't want to post a white paper or a blog and not have good knowledge, and studying and learning is part of that.
That is amazing. You just motivated me. I think you definitely have a plan, and you work that plan. And I think your teammates and your colleagues are lucky to have you on board. And I know that as we're Adequest as a Microsoft partner, it's good to have somebody like you that we can work with, man. That's awesome. Hey, Edward, I really appreciate you taking time to come on Secure Talk to us about Shadow IT and your job. and also things to be aware of. And that last few minutes on productivity tips there, that was great. I hope to see you next time you're here in the Seattle area.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look you up, and I enjoy. Adequest is one of the partners I'm actually actively working with now on some things, and you guys are great to work with. So I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to come on. I hope I brought a little bit of clarity or shed some light on the shadow IT. And to close out, shadow IT is a behavior adaptation of letting people know. I'm not telling you can't do it. I'm just telling you that if you are, let us know. And it's also the second part is keep an eye on what's going on inside your organization. And anytime you want us on, myself, I'm sure anybody from my team will be happy to come on.
That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Hello, welcome to Secure Talk, your trusted source of information on the latest threats, trends, tools, and technology related to cybersecurity and compliance. Join our hosts as they discuss a wide range of topics and speak with leading cybersecurity, technology, and compliance experts. Now is the time for Secure Talk.